So thank you for that work. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Now, we're going to do a second round of questioning if anyone wants to do that on the panel. And I'll start out by, I just want to do some follow-ups here, Director Sams. There's been discussion about a proposal to freeze Park Service funding at fiscal year 2022 levels. Secretary Holland recently sent a letter, I have it here in my hand, discussing the effects of a 22% reduction to fiscal year 2023 levels. She talked about reduced hours at Yosemite, closed visitor centers, or various things like that that were in this letter. Are you familiar with it?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. So your own Park Service budget proposes a 20% cut compared to fiscal year 2023. How do you reconcile the fact that Secretary Holland said a 22% cut in National Park Service would be catastrophic, while your own executive budget recommends a 20% cut and says it would provide essential investments?
Thank you, Chairman. I would have to go back and do a better analysis of that, and I would be happy to report back to you in written form of my analysis.
Yeah, so the Park Service own budget proposes a nearly 20% decrease. So while we have this letter from Secretary Holland decrying what may be these draconian cuts that she says are due to congressional Republicans and their actions, it turns out that the administration is proposing a 20% cut by going back to fiscal year 2023 levels. So we heard earlier that we cannot have these draconian cuts. I believe the ranking member commented about that. What's the difference between a 22% cut and a 20% cut as provided in the executive agency's budget?
Again, Mr. Chairman, I will do a deep dive on this, and I will get back into writing and explain it.
Yes, if you would do that, I would really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
In recent years, I'm going to go back to the Presidio, and the Presidio Trust has sought $200 million to redevelop 22 historic Spanish colonial barracks at the 30-acre Fort Scott site and turn it into a place for change. According to the Trust CEO, Gene Fraser, the Trust envisioned renovating these buildings so that people who are working in the environmental or social justice areas would have a place to do great work in this magnificent setting. Is taxpayer money from the Inflation Reduction Act that you transferred to Presidio now being used to create this environmental and social justice area?
I do not know this, Mr. Chairman. I don't know the specifics, but I can go look into that, though.
Yeah, if you would get us an answer in regards to that, do you think environmental and social justice improvements should be categorized as deferred maintenance?
It would depend on if they were already prior there and were making adjustments for that. Again, I'd have to go back and do a deeper dive on this.
Well, I suspect the American people don't think that fixing up the nation's parks, which is what was supposed to be the intent of this, right?
Yes, sir.
Is supposed to deal with deferred maintenance, the backlog that's going on, creating environmental and social justice areas, I don't think are what the American people envisioned for this. And knowing San Francisco the way it is, what used to be one of the most beautiful cities in the United States of America, that people on the right and left are saying has went into an abyss, is the Presidio going to become a homeless shelter? I think that's what many American people would be concerned about. The Presidio's enabling statute directed the Presidio Trust to operate without taxpayer funding by 2012. If the trust failed to achieve this self-sufficiency and continued to rely on taxpayer funding, the Trust Act stated that all property under the administrative jurisdiction of the trust be disposed of, and any real property so transferred shall be deleted from the boundary of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Is receiving $200 million in taxpayer funding from the IRA considered self-sufficient?
Again, I would have to go back and take a deeper look into those issues and get back to you, sir.
You can be straightforward here. Is that being self-sufficient when the taxpayers are having to put up $200 million?
Again, I don't know all the specifics of the Presidio Trust, but I will definitely look into it and I will get back to you with an answer.
Since they're clearly in violation of the Presidio Trust Act, would you support either rescinding this $200 million in taxpayer funding or deleting the Presidio Park from the boundaries of the Golden Gate NRA?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. Again, I would have to look more deeply into that and get back to you.
Could you get us an answer if this is in violation of the Presidio Trust Act?
Again, I don't know all the particulars for the Presidio Trust Act, but I will look into it and get back to you.
I'd like to know specifically if this is in violation of the Presidio Trust Act. And you know, this is really not difficult to deal with. All the Presidio Trust has to do is go to the billionaires that are out there in Silicon Valley. Go to Mrs. Jobs, go to Mr. Zuckerberg, go to Sergey Brin and the Google crowd, who have these billions of dollars. Just go ask them for the money. This is pocket change for them. Rather than asking the American people to do this, I see no one else that is here to ask any questions. So Director Sams, I want to say thank you for your testimony, and I want to thank the members for their questions. I really look forward to your answers coming back, and we may have some follow-ups to those answers. I think they're very important for the American people, especially as we leave here and we go out and have hearings of the Federal Land Subcommittee around the United States. We're going to want the American people to know what's happening here. The members of the committee may have some additional questions for our witness today, and we will ask that he respond to those in writing, if you would, Director. Under Committee Rule 3, members of the committee must submit questions to the subcommittee clerk by 5 p.m. on Friday, April 21st, 2023. The hearing record will be held open for 10 business days for these responses. If there is no further business, we're here pretty alone, aren't we? Without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.